We're back in session. We'll go when you call the roll.
Creekmore,
Yes, here.
Cummins,
Here.
Fields. Here. Heatherly,
Here.
Rodner. Here. Wheeler.
Here. This was to go over 142, 143, correct? I'll just pass it down to Richard.
Okay, and also to review the 141
Okay.
as final form, or final form. Pass it down.
You only have enough for your numbers.
I think so.
Okay. Share with you.
Yes, sir.
Moving over your charters.
Thank you, sir. Help out a little bit. This is just the 141 fund.
Is this more, is it, it's the same?
We've got enough, so yeah.
We got one here.
Just a red line.
Yeah.
If I put the glasses on, I'll start making an inventory of what the
Is that an extra? Is that an extra?
What I'll usually do is review the budget notes with the board, and if there's questions, go through them, try and address the questions. So if it gets monotonous, I apologize ahead of time. From the budget notes for the 141 fund, state legislature approved changing public school funding to the TISA formula, Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement. In April 2022, with funding now based on the TISA formula, which is a student-based approach to determine funding allocations. The May TISA funding allocation estimate for 25-26 is $39,684,695, which is a decrease of $222,670 compared to the final 24-25 TISA funding allocation of $40,007,365. State Board of Education approved a $2,500 increase in the minimum salary schedule for licensed instructional personnel certified employees for the 25-26 year, with $620,408 of the TISA funding restricted to be used for certified salary increases. Funds previously awarded as grants for the Coordinated School Health, Family Resource Centers at White Oak and Jellicoe, and the Safe Schools program are included in the TISA funding as direct funding with program allocations determined at the local level and will continue to be tracked by the respective cost centers. The state required local match of $9,514,847 is provided for within the local revenue maintenance purpose funding level of $10,567,388. Local funding increasing $12,462 above the prior year to total $10,579,850, resulting in actual local funding exceeding the required local match by $1,065,003. Other charges from services are relative to records access fees with a contracted vendor to provide services to students, educational institutions, and other entities for transcript and other student record requests identified by cost center 4399C in the detailed 7-column report. Miscellaneous refunds consist of flow-through funds to the BOE from individual schools for contract services, primarily transportation services and employee work and events and activities paid by the school sites, and is estimated at $67,645 based on the prior year activity. Funding of $40,000 is estimated from the Lafayette Medical Foundation for the flu vaccine program. The driver's ed program is anticipated to receive state revenue of $11,984 based on the prior year funding with the costs appropriated for fuel, insurance, other supplies, and other operational needs identified in the cost center 46,550. Personnel resources were redirected during 2015-16 off of this as an additional elective class. State pre-K program funds were consolidated into one grant in 2009-10, identified at the cost center 46,590. Funding was increased in 22-23 by about $200,000 to provide for additional pre-K classes. Funding for 25-26 is estimated at $1,039,795. For latter revenues and expenditures are estimated at $34,261, inclusive of benefits. The special education reimbursement for high-cost students expenditures identified at cost center 47-143 changed significantly during 23-24, with the state only reimbursing for priority level 3 services. For the upcoming 25-26 year, reimbursement is only anticipated to be $7,680 relative to out-of-county student transportation. Additional student needs include psychological services, physical therapy, additional nursing, and Order 1A. Multi-year Gear Up grant, cost center 94334 for enhanced college preparation ending June 30, 24. The ROTC program revenues are anticipated at $74,399, which provides support for approximately 50% of the salary component, with the remaining costs provided by local funds. So that's an overview of the revenue notes. On the expenditures, as most of you are aware, we've changed the structure of the fund during 23-24 to discontinue use of sub-fund accounts. We used to use 4 different sub-funds to account for instructional components, classroom components, non-classroom components, and non-BEP components. Discontinuation of sub-funds eliminated multiple accounts, simplified data entry, and consolidated accounts used to track expenditures by student line. 25-26 recommended budget, which is column 7 on the detailed report. And the requested budget is column 6, contains estimated personnel and non-personnel costs to meet anticipated operational needs for the year, approved and recommended by the Director of Schools. Differing specialized appropriations for items such as ROTC program, differentiated pay, sick leave, flow-through funds from school sites, and Applied Medical Foundation flu vaccine program funding were reclassified in 2021. Category 71-400 for classroom-related costs, and Category 72-810 for non-classroom costs to segregate specialized appropriations from regular recurring operational costs. The classification of several other state grants was considered, but they were limited to specific categories within the plan and were not able to be reclassified. 25-26 budget includes various personnel changes consisting of transfers, retirements, degree upgrades, transfers between school sites and accounts, and multiple position abolishments. 4 federal 142 instructional coach positions were transferred to the regular 141 fund teacher positions. Thereafter, 3 141 fund instructional coach positions were transferred to 142 fund instructional coach positions, with federal funding reductions resulting in the elimination of the previous 4th federally funded instructional coach. Budget includes various personnel changes enacted during 24-25 year, as well as prior periods, including the state-required RTI positions and ESL teachers. The proposed budget includes changes in cost for years of experience, degree upgrades, as well as state rates for certified personnel at $10,000. Funds used to purchase accumulated sick leave time certified and classified employees were maintained at prior year levels. They're identified by cost center 29900. Non-certified substitute teacher pay remains $75 per day established during 23-24. The bonus pay schedule for non-certified substitute teachers was discontinued for 25-26 year. Certified substitutes are required for teacher absences more than 20 consecutive days, with funding set at $45,000 between the regular and special education programs. Per state guidance, certified subs began to be accounted for solely in line item 195 during 2019-20 year. Tutoring program, which was initiated with ESSER funds to address learning loss and assist students with academic performance, and being continued within this fund at a program cost of about $70,000. The TCRS retirement rates now established annually. 25-26 rate for certified personnel utilizes an 8% rate due to the hybrid plan. The rate for classified personnel increased 0.09% from 6.65 to 6.74. Participation within the hybrid retirement plan, which has up to 9% employer contribution, is increasing its personnel leave and replacement of new personnel under the hybrid plan. Life insurance benefits were reviewed and increased during 2019-20 death of an employee's child in order to provide additional coverage amounts to employees. Went from a $25,000 benefit to a $35,000 benefit. For spouses, $5,000 benefit to $15,000. Children from a $2,500 benefit to $10,000. And infants remained at $1,000. This structure is expected to remain the same for 25-26 without any rate increase. The budget contains appropriations for an anticipated medical insurance rate increase of 7% effective January 1, 2026. Provides for participation changes with the employer contribution rate remaining at the 82% level. Differing plans and plan types are anticipated to have differing rate increases similar to the prior year. Overall, employment compensation costs will maintain the prior year level to meet anticipated operational needs. Appropriations for the Certified Retiree Medical Insurance Program are reflected in account 72310-215, cost center 00216, and projected to increase about $10,500 and amount to $256,000 based on anticipated participants. Classified retirees now participate in the state plan with $46,405 cost reflected in account 441, 72310-299, cost center 00216, which is an increase of about $5,500. Operating lease payments within account 330 are relative to copier costs for different school sites and were maintained at $20,135. Account 71-100-399 contains appropriation for services from Niswanger, as well as the state mandated computer science curriculum through code. Instructional supplies and materials for teachers were maintained at $173,600 in the regular program, $20,000 in the special education program, $24,830 for the CTE program for the upcoming year. Regular textbook appropriations were maintained at the amended level of $700,030, which will provide for the 25-26 remaining K-8 science books and other textbook adoption needs. Cost for student management software is maintained at $53,000, contained in account 72110-317, cost center 00317. Services relative to student psychological evaluations are anticipated at $28,600 based on past operations. Services and cost could increase or decrease depending on actual needs. Coaching supplements were reduced to remove $40,000 of funding from supplemental training activities such as strength training that has been instituted in April 23. If supplemental training activities are performed by the individual school sites, they will now be responsible for 100% of the costs as flow-through funds for BOE with employees of contract services. Appropriations still include funds established by the Board of Education during 2019-20, to meet operational needs and to address any Title IX issues. Evaluation and testing appropriations maintained at $60,000 to provide for costs associated with Curriculum Associates, Riverside, the EASY, CBM, and other providers for the online kindergarten testing platform and benchmark. Based on the 24-25 operations of special education services for physical therapy and occupational therapy are budgeted at $261,000, which will continue to eliminate the dependency on federal carryover funds for these services. Differentiated pay plan is being budgeted for training amount of $30,000. Library books were maintained at $44,000. Technology software costs are relative to the personnel database program, inventory management system, and services from Instant IQ. Microsoft licensing costs and Microsoft Teams costs were maintained at $67,500. Standard insurances, liability, building contents, vehicle insurance, and so forth are anticipated to increase 15%. Workers' compensation rates are expected to increase 3% from the state rates for certified personnel and provide for additional exposure. Workers' compensation also includes appropriations for direct pay requirements under the old lumberman's policy coverage and settlements, which are subject to change between years. $8,000 appropriation for maintained for required background checks for employees. School systems, school site communication policy are anticipated to decrease by $30,000 with the change in carriers and structure of the program. Budget maintains direct school support of $13,000 to assist school sites with other costs and allow for decreased fundraisers. Fire alarm monitoring system for extension and inspection is provided for within account $72,610,399 and about $5,000. The total appropriation is set at $20,000 based on prior year operations to cover the fire alarm as well as the fire extinguisher and other contracted services. Water testing services are through contract service and they were maintained at $10,000. Custodial supplies were maintained at $90,400. Utilities were based on 24-25 projected utilization with a 3% increase on electricity, 5% rate increase for water and sewer, 20% rate increase for natural gas costs. Funding of $46,000 was requested for contracted mowing services at CCHS and Jaspersville Middle School, but is not contained within the budget due to funding limitations. Maintenance and repair services on buildings and general construction material appropriations were maintained at prior year level, with construction materials established at $181,750 for school repair needs. Appropriation for transportation contracts were maintained at $1,652,530. They're inclusive of recurring contract supplements of $4,000 per contract. During 22-23, contracts were increased by $10,000 per contract to address the anticipated fuel cost increases, which remains in place. Funds for other transportation needs are set at $15,000 for health fairs, demo visits, BizTown, and so forth. There's a new line item for CPA consulting services that were added in account 72,810,399 and $50,000. Capital outlay category contains $772,500 of recurring funds to provide for capital outlay projects, with $100,000 identified for continuation year 2 of a 4-year program of replacement of the exterior doors at CCHS, $77,000 for school safety projects, with the remaining $595,500 for unspecified projects. Carryover capital project funds amount to $1,170,671 relative to the CCHS multi-sports complex. Multiple requests were made for potential 25-26 capital projects consistent with the following. Next page you can see request for Campbell County High School for a new mower at $15,000, additional exterior cameras at $16,000, pole vault pit at $25,000, soccer windscreen fencing at $10,000, to total $66,000. For Jacksboro Elementary School, request for scan card readers on the doors at $7,000, rekeying of school building at $80,000, playground fence at $15,000, and window decals at $4,400 for a total of $106,400. Should be noted these are preliminary cost estimates with the scope of the various projects to be further reviewed and prioritized, refined to result in more specific project cost estimates, which may include solicitation of formal project bids to determine more specific cost estimates. More refined project cost estimates will allow the building committee, the Board of Education, and the Director of Schools to evaluate the proposed projects, develop a project implementation schedule for approved projects. Also, a portion of these requests may use the school safety project fund. Principal and interest of $124,620 is relative to the LED lighting and EES outbound. Principal and interest of $470,459 is relative to the 2025 $3.5 million HVAC capital outlay note borrowed in the spring of 2025. The service section also contains $1,468,225 relative to the $1,250,000 school system share of the building programs bonded indebtedness, debt service funding, and $218,225 relative to bonds issued in May 2020, which were initially planned to be used to provide funding for roofing and HVAC needs. However, the roofing projects were identified as an allowable use of ESSER funds, allowing the bond proceeds previously planned for use of the building for roofing projects to fund parking lot paving projects at the various school sites and other capital improvements, which could not have been accomplished from ESSER funds. with the county commission, approving the revised use of bond proceeds, May 17th, 2021. Other debt service funds of $436,044 relative to repayment of the 15-year bond, energy efficient school initiative, training program. $99,425 is relative to solar panel program. Operating transfers of $29,995 food service operations were discontinued at the end of the 23-24 fiscal year. Food service operations have increased their equity position in recent years while simultaneously addressing equipment needs. Therefore, food service operations are no longer dependent upon ongoing transfer. On the last page of the notes is the equity section. You can see the community capital for the CCHS multi-sports complex of $1,176,71, that being appropriated for use. Uses of undesignated fund balance amount to $1,020,459. That's used to provide for debt service on 2025 note payment principal of $350,000, interest of $120,459, and other debt service transfers of $550,000 for total use of undesignated fund balance of $1,020,459. Review of the budget notes. In the packet that's handed out, there's a major category function summary, followed by primary component summary, and the location individual report. And the big, of course, the big document is the 7-column report, detailed budget estimate.
May I ask a question? Madam Chairman?
Oh, sure.
Are we gonna do that?
Yeah.
now, or- Ricky? Okay, the equity.
Yes.
Okay, this $1 million, this is money we had this year, am I correct, in this year's budget, in 141, that was not spent, correct?
For the multi-sports complex, that's correct.
Okay. So we have this money left over, correct?
Yes,
In our
on
budget.
that project.
Okay. Does that mean that project's back on or not?
It's up to this body.
Oh, okay. Okay.
My understanding it was going to reduce.
Richard, that's the question was, the other debt service of
Keeps me
$436,000
confused on the time they changed the mind.
is the energy efficient school initiative. Is this the last year of that?
I think there's one more year of it. I believe.
And I have another, are you through? Okay. RTI was never funded by the state, is that correct, am I right? Director Fields or not?
No, it was not.
It was not funded, and we put lots of money in there, have we
Yes.
not? Yeah, okay. So it's unfunded mandate that we've dealt with several years now.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, lots of money.
How much is that total, Ms. Radner? Do you know, Ms. Fields, for that?
Lisa, I think it was in the original, one of the budget notes, I think moving those back to the classroom was a savings of $400,000. Approximately $400,000. We're replacing them with, we will be hiring teaching assistants in place of that.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you. Mine's about number 11, the ROTC program revenues. I know that the federal government reimburses us for $74,000. Is that half of the SAI and AI's compensation, or does that include, I think we've added a assistant there as well, or do you know?
It's just for the ROTC officers.
Okay.
And it covers approximately 50% of the wages.
Right.
The benefits are paid 100% from, those benefits are paid from local funds.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and Director, they still have an assistant in that
They
program,
do,
correct?
yes.
Has their, and you may not know this off the top of your head, has their enrollment in that program significantly increased?
I don't know that their enrollment has increased. They did lose one instructor.
Okay. As in, we've not been able to fill
So
that
we have not
position.
been able to
Okay.
fill that position.
I know when I was a student, we had the SAI and the AI, and they seem to run everything very well with a large program, so I'm just wondering if, you know, an assistant position in
We
addition.
hired the assistant at the time they were both in place also.
Okay.
But
So we-
since that time, we've had one quit, and we've not been able to fill the position.
Gotcha. So if we fill that position, we may reconsider in future budgets the assistant position? Then I had one further question. 43, Richard, 20% increase for natural gas costs. Is that, you think that's going to be pretty accurate?
That's what, we contacted the utility, that's what they estimated the rate increase to be.
Wow. That seems very high.
And we contacted the utilities to try and get an estimated rate increase each year. I agree that is a large increase.
20% seems, we get a few percentage points.
Do you need us to approve this to send to the full board?
Yes. The nose and the instruments.
So Crystal, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
To approve the overall.
The gym money set aside here, that is undesignated, I mean, well, it's designated for the gym. But my concern with this is just when we're losing teachers, that's a luxury I'm looking at. And I'm not taking anything from any kids, you know, or, that's just my concern. And I mean, I know it's gotta go to the full board, but I just,
Yeah, that's why I said, you know, we can get it out of committee and let the full board just hash the rest of it out.
I mean, like I represent the first district, and every district in this county eventually ends up at Campbell County High School. They do. Or Jellicoe High School, yes ma'am. So, you know, by saying that, like, you know, I could be taken away from my first district kids that'll eventually end up there, but that's not my point. In order for them to get there, they need to be educated. And if we lose teachers, that's my concern. So that's my reservations with that.
Good point. Janie, anything?
One thing, and I see my band people over there, and I would like to see the band director placed back at Campbell County High School.
Yeah.
I know how hard Adam Wright works, and I know how hard it is to go to two middle schools, have a high school, and I think this past year did a huge shift in the band. A lot of things going on, and I like to see that put back. I've heard from a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I think we all have.
Yeah.
I have.
Yes, I think.
Sure you have too, right? We're kind of jealous. We'd like to have a band on the other side, but we like seeing you guys come and perform at the Jellicoe Parade every year, so we know you all
They do.
very
They
good.
work hard, they do a lot.
They
of work.
do, and we've had several
Yes.
students continue their education at the University of Tennessee.
Oh.
They play in the Pride of the Southland Marching Band, so
Absolutely.
it's a.
Get band
Yes, they do.
scholarships.
Yeah,
Yes,
band scholarships.
Yes, band
Absolutely.
scholarships, yes.
In order to fund the position, you need a reduction would need to be identified.
A couple of things, Richard, there's 595,000 for left for unspecified projects. Yet, I can't remember what that total number was last year. We're operating under, we have 46,000 requested up here that was not approved or not considered. Could that not be considered in the 595?
It's more of a contract service, it wouldn't be considered a capital outlay.
So we can't do, can't consider it there. Do you remember what was last year?
Offhand, I don't know if it's unspecified, but started at, I think, $1,072,000, and it got amended down to $741,000. So we tried to use that as the baseline for the capital projects.
I would also like to echo Jamie that concern about the assistant manager. Others certainly would love to be able to find a way to include that.
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
ma'am. One thing that I want to say, we had never had a second band director in Campbell County. And I requested with Richard, because I remember when Tiffany Braden was a student at Campbell County High School and when she was in band. And she has done an exceptional job. And we've worked hard to keep all these positions in place since the ending of ESSER. And I certainly think the more opportunities we provide for our students, whether they're academic or extracurricular or in the arts, I feel that it's important to do. I fully support that. It was never a cut because I didn't think it was necessary. It was because it was never one of the required positions. So that's how it was brought to the forefront, that it would be one that would be considered for elimination when I was asked to propose a budget without the required classes and positions.
So what's the pleasure of the committee? What do y'all want to do?
So, Madam Chair, I mean, her total wages and benefits are $68,655. We're gonna have to identify, the committee, because I don't serve on the committee, but the committee's gonna have to identify roughly $70,000 in cuts elsewhere. But in addition, we already have a non-balanced budget, even with the combined classroom, the budget still didn't balance, correct?
No, I think that, Richard, am I correct in saying we do have a balanced budget? There was just one position that can be added.
It's not balanced due to the use of equity for the debt service, otherwise it is balanced.
Should we call a special, like a
I
special call
think
meeting?
there's I think Mr. Miller's planning on calling a special call on Friday. All right? It's my understanding, is that what you're
I
thinking?
understood it was Friday, for a
Um,
special call board meeting.
Just send this to the full and just hash it out with all 10 members Friday? But it needs to get out of committee, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
We need to get it out of committee and let the full board pass it on Friday or whatever.
Ms. Creekmore, just to clarify, this vote that the committee's getting ready to take, it is, as stated last week, or is it going to be updated? Is this including combining classes or not combining classes?
not combining.
Okay, I'd be remiss if I didn't represent my district. And, you know, the classes, it's got 30-to-1 teacher ratios with this big of a cut. And be for this. You know, we have the majority of our classes over here at 30-to-1 teacher ratios. And by doing this, it's sacrificing a lot of those jobs with 30-to-1 teacher ratio classes. And that's gonna hurt those kids. So if it goes to the full board as is, it's a definite no vote for me. So you might wanna, you know, anybody else that's got that same situation, you may wanna rethink your status, because what's gonna happen is if it fails, it's gonna go back and it's just gonna set us back beyond our limit of setting our budget.
So if we send this as is to the committee, the budget, the board can, how should I make changes Friday?
The board could still make changes.
On Friday? Okay.
Madam-
Need to get it out of this committee to the board.
And then the full board can make
The full board
recommendations.
can make
then.
recommendations.
Okay.
Well,
I thought it was gonna be a vote then, so my apologies.
No, I think we can change it, and it still has, correct?
Yeah.
When we send it to the full board, it can change at the full board's pleasure.
The full board could still make changes.
So Friday, we can edit, adjust, modify as needed.
Yes, but you won't have instruments that would
You
reflect
have-
those changes, obviously.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, Madam Chair, it seems to me like instead of a full board meeting, we probably need to have a workshop.
I don't think you have enough time for a workshop. You can't vote, pass a budget in a workshop. That's why we're gonna do a meeting, because it's now time sensitive. It's got to be passed and put in the paper, for the commission to pass it at the end of the month. Correct, Richard?
Yes, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
I've received a message from the chairman, and he wants me to check and see if the courthouse is available for Friday evening at 5:30 for a special call meeting.
Okay.
And just to publicly say this, since this is all a surprise to the board members, I will not be able to be in attendance Friday. I'm officiating a wedding, so,
I think that's late.
Will it be legal?
yes, allegedly.
How much cake they got?
If it was anything else, I would be glad to skip it, but I don't think the bride would be too happy.
So I guess we just need a motion to send this.
And just for the record, as sent to the board, I would not vote for it anyway, just for the record. And I know we need 6 votes, so I'm a no, Lester's a no.
So my question is,
Go ahead.
so my question is, if it doesn't go to the full board, we've got to still work on this, right?
Kind of cuts or
So,
acceptable forms of raising the income.
and let me get this clear, on the assistant band director, which is $68,655, right? We're gonna have to make some type of cuts somewhere. Okay.
So we know there's gonna be a couple changes in life, so.
Yeah.
Or you can save a lot of positions. Or you combine and save a lot of positions.
Well, that's what I was gonna say,
Yeah.
what Brent had said.
No. Randy?
I can't support this budget for multiple reasons. The largest being, it's using $700,000 of DEX equity. And, you know, said before, it's gonna be, we're at 7.9. If we use that this year, next year, we're gonna take a couple more million there. Our reserves are dwindling without a plan to either, one, generate more income. So we either got to figure out a way to generate income, or, you know, make some major changes. So, you know, to echo Brent's and Brennan's opinion that I cannot support it for multiple reasons, that being the largest. Just the principle that it puts us in a position where our funds are dwindling, and the outlook is not good at that point. And as we said today, I think the outlook's not good from a funding perspective, so.
have a full board, everybody to hash it out, because I think as far as the committee, we've just kind of finally got to this position, and I think we need to involve the entire board. That's just my opinion. I don't know what others think, but I think, even though others have spoken during this committee, I think it needs to, in the essence of time, let everybody just come Friday or whenever and hash it out. Put this to bed, because I know I'm tired of going with it. I don't mean that to sound rude or anything, but this is, I think it's had a toll on us all. So.
Well, I am not for this budget, but I agree that the full board needs to discuss it. So everybody can say their opinions and everybody can speak out about what they feel needs to happen. I know I've spoken to several principals, and I understand where they're coming from, and I agree. So I'm for it to go to the full board, because I think it needs to be hashed out by all of us that can attend and be there. And I know, I mean, you know, there's 10 of us. We're not all gonna agree on everything.
Well, let's find a
But we
happy
need-
medium. And
Right, yes, ma'am, and we need to respect each other's opinions, and we need to talk about this, and we need to work it out. There's a lot of things that need to be worked out. I am disturbed about losing the intervention teachers, but I understand that is ESSER money, and that money is going away, and I know that. But we have, when you have a classroom, let's take first grade teachers, for example. And you have a classroom of 22 students. You know, I'm just gonna say this is where I'm coming from. You have a classroom of 22 students. You have one teacher in there working all day. This is elementary, this doesn't count middle school and high school. One teacher working all day. A 30-minute break, or, you know, sometimes they get 2 specials, however they do. If that teacher doesn't have help, and she is teaching the tier levels, correct, Ms. Fields? And she is teaching the tier levels, then she is alone doing the tier levels while these other kids are over here working on things they need to be working on. But you have first graders, so that's not necessarily always going to happen, and that's just, everybody knows that. So it's very hard. So when you're looking at losing teachers that are going to come into the classroom, or losing interventions that are coming into the classroom to help these teachers, I don't agree with that. I mean, I know, I get it, we're going to have to lose some, but not as many. I mean, that's just where I'm coming from. So I don't support this budget, but I am going to support it going to the full board so everybody can have their say.
Anybody else?
Second.
I don't think.
I guess I may have accidentally made one when I said that. So.
And you made you to send to the full board,
Yes.
correct? Okay, this is to send this budget to the full board. Creekmore?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Fields?
Yes.
Heatherly?
No.
Rodner?
No.
Wheeler? Yes. You passed for the full board.
Okay. Okay, Richard, what do you got for us next?
Okay.
We did do that. Jamie?
Project plan.
Do you know any kind of plan to reduce the population of all of that? Or is it still sitting dead? There has to be a plan before it gets started.
Did that pass?
Yeah, we took a second reading of it.
Okay, we got a second reading on a policy.
Go.
Transfer within the system.
It's kind of ridiculous. After 3 years, now those 2 schools are open. Bunches.
Grant?
You didn't be that person that did.
That's making my husband money.
This is
Keeps my husband
yours.
busy.
It's 142.
His favorite place is their finances, they clean everything.
Okay, on the 142 federal projects fund, I apologize, I don't have the detailed seven-column report in order to hand out, but the materials in the folder are the budget notes and the summary reports. I can email out the detailed seven-column reports if that's okay with the members. In terms of the budget notes, State Department of Education completed the process of establishing E-Plan as the monitoring and reporting software for federal projects for most state grants, with separate modules for the general purpose school fund and central cafeteria fund. State regulates the category and line items available to be used within the E-Plan, requiring the program manager to take into consideration account number availability as program budgets are developed, since all categories and line items may not be available for each program. School site cost centers are not contained in the E-Plan. Any programs that may need or require school site expenditure tracking will need to provide detailed information as to the amount to be identified by such cost center, or make provisions to track school site expenditures separately from the financial reports through the use of supplemental worksheets or spreadsheets maintained by the respective program manager. Most of the recurring federal programs are contained within the Consolidated Federal Projects Comprehensive Plan. Your Title I, Title II, Title IV, Title V, Special Education IDEA, Special Education preschool programs. Under the Comprehensive Plan, line item budgets are prepared by the program managers at the local level within the account number limitations noted above, and program reviews and approvals are made by the State Department of Education to ensure compliance with specific program requirements and guidelines. The state also now requires significant detailed information to be submitted to the accompaniment of the planned use of funds, may approve or reject locally developed budget plans. 25-26 budget document contains various titles of the special education program, which consists of detailed budgets submitted by the school system to the State Department of Education. The budget does not include estimates of carryover funds for programs with carryover funds to be amended into the budget during 25-26. Revisions will be made by the managers of the respective programs to reflect carryover funds and any other revisions needed. The base level funding allocation for the upcoming year may be insufficient to meet recurring personnel costs and/or other recurring operational costs. Collectively, the various consolidated program components of base funding allocation stayed the same as the prior year funding level, with the exception of the Title V component, which increased approximately $11,000. The school system intends to use carryover funding to provide for operational costs not provided for from base funding allocations. The consolidated administration funding for federal funds recognizes a reapportionment of revenues from Title I, Title II, and Title V programs into a separate subfund 010 to identify costs separately for administrative personnel and non-personnel items. In past years, funds were transferred between programs were identified as an operating transfer from one program to another. But in the review with the state, the respective title funds take on the identity and the associated usability guidelines of the respective federal program that they're reapportioned to. And as such, these funds are now recognized as a separate revenue account within the respective program making use of the funds. The different programs have, some of your programs have more stringent guidelines. Some programs, Title II, have broader guidelines which are helpful with use of the funds to benefit the school system. The Career Technical Education Vocational Program Carl Perkins funds are allocated at $130,861.95 for the upcoming year, which is the same amount as awarded for 24-25 fiscal year. These funds do not carry over between fiscal years. Title I program, which is Fund 100 in the detailed records, the initial allocation is $1,973,137, same as the prior year. Carryover funds are used allocated primarily for instructional supplies and equipment. Title II-A, training and recruitment funds, subfund 200. The base allocations are $302,236, the same as the prior year. The full amount of the Title IV allocation of $149,775 is being transferred to the Title II program, which has broader guidelines for eligible expenditures. Title II program transfer to consolidated admin is set at $41,340. Title II program is also transferring $26,000 to the Title V program for use within that program. Remaining funds from the prior year Title IV program transfer is not being reappropriated at this time. Will be amended into the budget during the year within the respective program. Previously, if the direct allocation of Title II funds was not used, the planned transfer of funds to be moved from Title IV to Title II did not occur and remained in the Title IV program. That process changed in the year 2020-21, with reapportioned funds from Title IV being recognized proportionally to the total expenditures in the receiving program during the year, even if the receiving program did not use the entirety of its direct funding allocation, which results in increased carryover funds with less restrictive eligibility guidelines. 21st Century Community Learning Centers programs are anticipated to occur at $55,000 and $597,580 respectively. Carryover funds are no longer allowed within this program. Title V program funding is $178,773 in base funding, with $18,000 being allocated to the consolidated admin component, with remaining funds appropriated for operational needs. Special Education Systemic Change Grant will be amended into operations for finalized in E-Plan. Special Education Program anticipates being awarded an Access for All Learning Network grant identified in subfund 890 in the amount of $10,000. Special Ed Idea Part B funding, subfund 900, was allocated $1,504,732. Personnel costs inclusive of benefits utilize the base allocation with non-personnel accounts being contingent upon carryover funds for supplies, equipment, contract services, and other operational needs for the upcoming year. Funds for the occupational therapy, physical therapy, contract services are contained in the 141 GPS fund to alleviate the dependency on carryover federal funds to meet those critical program needs. Special Education Preschool Grant Program funding has been allocated at $62,236, the same amount as the prior year's adjusted allocation. On the expenditures, budget includes various personnel changes consisting of program transfers, retirements, degree upgrades, transfers between school sites accounts. Four federal 142 instructional coach positions were transferred to regular 141 fund teacher positions. Thereafter, 3 141 fund instructional coach positions were transferred to 142 fund instructional coach positions, with federal funding reductions resulting in the elimination of the previous 4 federally funded instructional coach positions. Proposed budget includes changes in cost for years of experience and degree upgrades, as well as proposed state raise for certified personnel of $2,500. Note on the non-certified substitute teacher pay remaining $75 is essentially the same note as in the prior fund. Similar to the TCS retirement rate, 8% for certified personnel, 6.74% for classified personnel, with more people moving to the hybrid plan in terms of new hires. The life insurance benefits are the same in this fund as discussed in the 141 fund. And this fund was planned initially for a 5% increase in medical insurance. However, the information was obtained after the initial planning that the rate increase would be 7%, so amendments will be needed year to year to address the variance in the rate increase. Still provides participation changes, but the employer contribution rate remaining at 52%. Differing plans and plan types are anticipated to have differing rate increases similar to the prior year. Indirect costs are not included in the initial 25-26 operations. They will be revised during the school year. We used a year-end to close out remaining appropriation for federal projects. And there are no proposed uses of equity in the 142 federal projects budget. Just in brief, on the major category function summary, about halfway down the page, you'll see the total revenues and other sources for the upcoming year of $4,964,330.90. At the bottom of the page, total expenditures, the same, $4,964,330.90 for a balanced budget. It should probably also be said that federal project funding is supplemental funding.
Richard, and Director, you may have to chime in on this, but the way I understand 15 about the transfers of the 141 to 142, back to 141, back to 142, could you explain that a little bit? The coach positions.
Pam, can you tell when those took place, the coach positions, when they moved? It says 4 federal fund instructional coach positions were transferred from 142 to 141 to fund teacher positions, and thereafter, and that.
Yes, I don't have a copy, but I know what you're talking about.
Can you explain that?
Yes, so, the 142 federal program last year paid for 4 instructional coaches.
Okay.
And 141 paid for the rest. So 142 was holding 4 positions for those instructional coaches. When the cuts were made in 141, and those coaches went back to the classroom, 4 were kept. It wasn't the same 4 that were kept. I think 4 were chosen to be district-wide to serve all the schools. So those 4 positions are the same 4 positions, just different people.
Gotcha.
I think they were chosen by job
We had
performance.
job performance, we had the AIRS coach
Yes.
training, and 2 in District 5 and 2 in Districts 1 through 4.
Yes. So they went back and forth, but the positions never changed in 142. We started out with 4 positions, we ended up with 4 positions, because we cannot supplant.
Roger that. So
Yes.
we will have 4 coaches under 142, under this proposed budget.
Yes.
But 2 are going to service all of districts 1 through 4, and 2 will service the 5th district.
They will all serve countywide.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yes.
I just wanted to be equal for kids all across the county.
2 of those are currently working in the 5th district, and
Okay.
2 are currently working.
So that the cuts are equal.
The cuts are
Okay.
equal,
I like that.
but it will serve the entire county.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other discussion? You making it?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the 142, I guess.
This is. Yes, it's fine.
Can I say one thing about 142?
Sure.
It was, the deadline for that was May for the State Department. It's already been approved, sent back, so we're ready to go with no issues.
Richard, can this also be edited, modified, adjusted even after approval from the state?
It requires program managers to resubmit a new plan and go through that process for the state to approve whatever revisions the program managers propose.
But so when this comes to the full board on Friday, we can still modify this?
No. You cannot supplant positions in 141 into 142. That's against supplement, not supplant. It will not be approved. And I did call my oversight supervisor because I knew we were having issues to see if there was anything that could be done. He said it would not be approved. It was unlawful to do that and would open us up to liability.
Understood.
Any other discussion? Call roll.
Creekmore,
Yes.
Cummings,
Yes.
Fields.
Yes.
Heatherly.
Yes.
Rodner.
Yes.
Wheeler. Yes. Motion passed.
The next fund is the 143 Central Cafeteria Fund. Oh. 43 fund.
That lost my attention. That one.
Come on.
Sticking out
Looks
there.
like.
Take mine and give it to Jeffrey.
You meet with him in the morning?
Just to find out what. Hey, Phil, he's in.
Okay. Go ahead, Richard.
Okay.
I'll go find it, then I'll find it.
Central Cafeteria Fund, 143. I'll go through the budget notes, see what we've been doing. The Cafeteria Fund began the Community Eligibility Program in the 2014-15 fiscal year as a pilot program for USDA reimbursements. So based on the total school populace without any local student charges for the breakfast program or for the lunch program under this initiative. The CEP program has continued throughout the year since 2014-15, with some adjustments to the USDA reimbursement rates in 2015-16 due to recognition of the alternative school site. The CEP program is anticipated to continue for the upcoming fiscal year, having completed the reapplication process for future periods in the spring of 2022. For the lunch payment to adults at the school sites, it experienced an increase of about $10,000 during the 24-25 year, and they're estimated to have continued growth of about $5,000 and budgeted at roughly $62,000 for 180 days in the upcoming year. The a la carte program provides an outlet for additional food sales. 24-25 revenues are stable at about $155,000. Anticipated to have growth of about $5,000 for the upcoming year. Federal revenues for the USDA lunch and USDA breakfast program reimbursement rates are anticipated to remain stable for the upcoming year. The lunch program revenue increase amounts to approximately $275,000 and is budgeted at $3,106,283 for a full 180-day service year. The breakfast program revenues for 24-25 were about $70,500, less than anticipated due to an abbreviated school year. They're expected to have growth of about $100,000 inclusive of changes in participation. They're expected to stabilize at $1,020,000. The supply chain assistance carryover funding of $62,333 was estimated to be utilized during 24-25, primarily for milk purchases, as recommended by the state consultant to comply with grant guidelines. The Fresh Fruits and Vegetables program is anticipated to recur for the 25-26 year at 4 school sites. With the discontinuation of use of subfunds 970, 971, programs being identified by the respective school site location preceded by 970 for the months of July through September, and preceded by 971 for the months of October through June. And those cost centers are listed on the notes. This allows for segregation in accord with the program guidelines. The summer seamless feeding program includes summer learning camps at multiple school sites, expanded operations at the Twigloo meal delivery program. With the discontinuation of use of Subfund 990, revenues and expenditures are accounted for utilizing the school site locations preceded by 990. Those are listed there for your information. In 2016-17, the state advised food service operations to start recognizing the value of commodities in revenues and expenditures. The value of commodities received are accounted for in revenue account 47-112, and the use of the commodities are accounted for in expenditure account 73-100-469 in the detailed instrument. The commodities are anticipated to remain stable at $310,620. As we talked about earlier, the operating transfer from the general purpose school fund is continued to 24-25. Also in the past, the state monitors the equity balance, and once it surpassed a certain threshold, they recommend rate changes and/or the use of equity for capital improvements. Moving on to the expenditures, this budget includes various personnel changes, transfers, retirements, replacements, potential work schedule changes, as well as the proposed state raise for certified personnel of $2,500, which is one position in this fund. The TCRS rate we discussed previously. This fund has mostly classified personnel, so that rate will be 6.74% for those personnel. The life insurance benefits have been reviewed a couple of times, and they're much better than what they were back in 2018-19. In this fund, I was able to go ahead and make the change to the 7% for the medical insurance rate increase, with the contribution rate remaining at 82% level. Again, differing plans within the health offering and plan types are anticipated to have different rate increases similar to the prior year. So it's not necessarily a 7% across the board. It would depend on the type of plan the person is participating in. Classified retirees now participate in the state plan with costs reflected in account 143, 73,300, 299, cost center 00204, based on present participation levels. Maintenance repair services are anticipated at $63,368, continue to include $7,200 of preventive maintenance for cooling units at various sites. Appropriations for travel will maintain at $5,000 based on operational needs. The contract service appropriations were also set at a recurring amount of about $66,250. Food preparation supplies for the school sites increased slightly by about $1,500 during 24-25. Budgeted with an increase of about $9,000 or 7% above projected 24-25 expenditures, at about $144,000 for the upcoming year, including the fresh fruits and vegetables program and summer feeding program. Food supplies for the school sites, including the fresh fruits and vegetables grant program, summer seamless feeding program, are budgeted at $1,719,905, which is about $298,500 above the 24-25 utilization. Also set up an additional $89,000 contained in a separate account with the cost center 00098 in case the actual cost for food supplies is greater than anticipated. There's some built-in flexibility there in case it's needed. Fresh fruits and vegetables grant program and the summer feeding program anticipated to occur at the 24-25 levels. An additional $89,000 to the fund for food supplies is being established, cost center 98, in preparation for future operations since supply chain assistance funds are no longer available. Uniform appropriations and other supplies and materials are maintained at about the same appropriation levels as the prior year. Other charges contains licenses and workers' compensation insurance costs. Other operational needs are also provided for within the account. Appropriations are being maintained at the 24-25 levels for the upcoming year. Equipment appropriations for 25-26 are established at $200,000 to provide for unspecified equipment needs, and there are no proposed uses of equity within this budget. That's a review of the budget notes. Major category, total revenues and sources for the upcoming year in the calculated budget, column 7, now it's $5,343,779. On the second page of the summary, total expenditures, $5,343,779 for the balanced budget.
Okay, anybody got any questions?
Madam Chairman, our chairman, Mr. Miller, was talking one time about tariffs. Is that, I assume that money right there, if prices of food goes up, that's what they'll use, is that,
Yes.
that's what it's basically for? What about in their other budgets, 141 and 142? He kind of alarming saying it's gonna be $130-some thousand or something we need to come up with, to have budgeted somewhere.
Hadn't heard that number.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever the effect on the tariffs, if any, then your project costs will more go up. Your capital outlay monies won't buy you as much. Your materials and supply money won't buy you as much.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the 143?
So moved. Second.
Call the roll.
Creekmore,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Fields,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Absolutely, yes.
Ryder,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, there will be a special call meeting Friday at 5:30.
Location
It's
is
full,
tentatively,
It'll be
Full
full
board.
board, yes, Friday at 5:30.
yes, it's tentatively set for the courthouse. If anything changes, I will announce tomorrow.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.